to meeting of the executive. Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Nicky. I'm Councillor Jeff Brooks, the leader of West Berkshire Council. Welcome to today's executive meeting. In a spirit of goodwill to all people, some of us got the memo and are wearing our Christmas jumpers, and good luck. I'm glad those have done. As I say, some others didn't get the memo, but I'm hoping that the meeting will be conducted in a spirit of goodwill at this nice time of year. I don't know why I'm looking at you, leader of the opposition. We will see. We will see. So, first up then, apologies for absence, please, Nicky.
We have that's right. We have apologies from Councillor Denise Gaines and from David Marsh.
Thank you very much.
Leader, could I pass an apology on? Councillor Hooker does like to attend these, as you know, and he's sorry he can't make it. He's just a little bit injured this morning, so just to note those apologies.
I hope he's okay. We wish him well. We then have the minutes on page 9 through to 14 from the last executive meeting.
Sorry, Leader. David Marsh was hoping to actually join us via Zoom, but he's not recovering very well from his hip operation. So I guess he may join us later, assuming Zoom's in operation.
We do wish him well. I saw him yesterday on Teams and he was in some discomfort, but we do wish him well. Okay, so the minutes, could I have a proposal, please, from a member of the executive, Stuart Gawley? Councillor Codling seconding. All those in favour of the minutes, please. Thank you very much indeed. Declarations of interest. Do we have any in the room? Then I'll move on from there. We then welcome members of the public who are going to put questions tonight. There are quite a few of them. I just reminded myself that we will hear the answer to the question and then you can put a supplementary. It'll appear on screen. We got 30 minutes for this, and if your question has not been answered that time, you receive a written response. I think we probably will get through it because we've got a couple of people who, I think there's one or two with written answers. But if I may, if Alison May is on Zoom, I don't know if she is, Mr. Chiverton. She's not. So we will give on question A written answer, Councillor Gawley, to Alison May, please. Mr. Goatley, good evening. You're up on question B, please, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Goatley. Thank you very much for your question. So in the current financial year, West Berkshire Council is forecasting interest rate repayments of £8 million and principal repayments of £4.2 million. Just for added information, the weighted average cost of borrowing, interest rate wise, is 3.84%. Do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, please. That seems quite a lot, but which way is it going? Are you paying down the loans or is it going to get worse for next year and the rest of this year?
So, as you know, as I just explained there, the weighted average cost of borrowing is at 3.84%. Interest rates are higher than that. So if we're borrowing more money, we will end up paying a little bit more than that over the long term, yes.
You mean we'll end up paying more?
We do, yes.
Thank you.
I would hope you get some extra services for the extra borrowing though, and all residents will benefit from that. Thank you. We've got the next question up. Mr. Pearce, good evening. This is to Councillor Foote.
Thanks, Chair. Good evening, Alan. The executive public question, which Mr. Pearce refers to, appears to relate to costs directly connected to the return of football to Faraday Road. Consultancy costs in relation to a design and feasibility study on the potential installation of an artificial pitch is entirely separate from the commencement of football in November 2023 and the current work to accommodate Newbury FC's competitive matches. The procurement of consultants looking at the potential for a 3G pitch is set out in 3 phases. However, at this stage, it's only intended to commission phase 1, which is for a design and feasibility study, and the cost of that is £26,975. Do you have a supplementary question?
Yeah, it's quite a confusing answer, wasn't it? I wasn't expecting that answer, so I'm quite confused by it. It'd take a minute to think. Could I ask you to send me a copy of the tender response from the people doing the work so I can better understand what work they're doing?
I'm not sure we can, sir, but that would be commercial in confidence, wouldn't it?
Well, I don't know.
Those bidders wouldn't want us to share those tender responses.
Could you
So
redact
that
it?
would be irregular, sir.
So you're saying you can't send it?
I am saying that, I think, because if tender is new, we would share that, all their bids, we'd have some problems. Yes, but even with an FOI, I'm being guided here. You could put in an FOI request, but I tell you, I think there will be, the tenderers would ask for some redaction of that, because otherwise that tenderers don't want this to be in the public domain for other bidders and competitors to know. So bear that in mind, sir.
Well, I would have FOI'd it because the time it takes. I wanted to get questions in.
I think FOI might be the best course of action for you.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
We'll move on to question E. That's Mrs. Sanderson. Is Paula in the hold it right? So we'll take that question then. I beg your pardon, sir.
No problem.
Is there a supplementary?
No, it's just that it helps. I think Alan's question later on, question H, we might be actually going back to have a look at the invitation to tender. So I think we can elaborate a bit more in that second question. So hopefully we can clear.
This one.
Hello.
Yes, got you, Miss Saunderson. Thank you. I'm just looking up my notes because rather than actually not giving you an answer because the portfolio holder is away, I'm actually going to answer it for you.
Oh, thank you. Most appreciated.
But you may not find your supplementary answered unless I've got half an idea what you're asking.
Okay.
So the council does not normally publish responses to such consultations on its website because there are a large number of consultations across the council and the ability to display these on our website becomes limited. I can confirm that we expect it to be made available through the background information the government publishes when it responds to the consultation and the NPPF. Should you wish to have a copy of the council consultation response, we can share this. Do you have a supplementary?
Oh yeah, I've seen obviously responses from East Hampshire and Somerset, etc., on both those subjects, and we've got some more coming up on the white paper for devolution and the reform of planning committees. And we do sign up to a planning policy newsletter, some of us. So I'm just wondering if some of it could be put down that communication channel. I understand that the whole public don't want to see all this stuff, but that planning policy newsletter might be a vehicle to put some of this information down.
I think I'll pass that on and see what we do. I won't answer fully now, but we'll pass it on to the portfolio holder and the head of place, Mrs.
Thank you.
Okay. Next one up, Mr. Babruki, I know you're here. Good evening. And this is to the Finance and Resources portfolio holder.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Babruki, for your question. The answer being the Procurement Board meets monthly. Specific dates can be shared if so wished. The Procurement Board terms of reference were amended in November 2024. Therefore, we have included members under the previous terms of reference, which were in place until October 2024, as well as the current members. So the terms of reference from May 2023 to October 2024 were attendees, the Executive Director 151 Officer, Resources, who is the Chair, the Head of Commissioning and Procurement, Legal Services Representative, Financial Services Representative, Service Managers and Procurement Officers to attend for their specific agenda items, Director Representatives, Corporate Category Manager, items standing on contract awards and upcoming renewals, and lastly, the Commissioning and Procurement Administrator who does the scheduling and administration. For the terms of reference from November 2024 onwards, we have the 151 Officer as being the Chair, the Service Lead Commissioning and Procurement, Legal Service Manager, Financial Services Representative, Service Managers, Category Managers, Procurement Officers and Service Representatives to attend for the specific agenda items only. And lastly, the Commissioning and Procurement Administrator for doing the scheduling and administration of the meetings. Do you have a supplementary question?
Thank you for that answer. I do have a supplementary. Would it be possible, even if it's redacted, to have a list of the attendees and a copy of the minutes of those meetings?
I'm passing that to the legal and monitoring officer.
They would be internal working documents. I suspect you are clearly within your rights to submit a formal request, and we're required then to give you due consideration in accordance with the legislative framework. I suspect that they will be commercially sensitive, and they are part of a process that will lead to a decision that is often taken in public. So that would also be another ground for exemption. But I think certainly if you wish to submit a request, that is your entitlement.
Thank you for that answer.
Thank you, Mr. Brookie. Mr. Goat is next up, I think, on G. You coming forward, Mr. Goatley?
Yeah. Thank you for your question, Mr. Goatley. The design cost is 11,750. The costs are externally funded by the Thames Valley Berkshire Local Enterprise Partnership. The significant part of the drainage design is below ground and functions in accordance with the designs done, and the above ground works conform with highway standards. Do you have a supplementary?
Yes. Thank you for that answer. The purpose of these gardens, I believe, was twofold. One was aesthetic and the other was partial suds. The aesthetic, it's an absolute mess. So the suds, I can just read one sentence from the environmental appraisal report. Sustainable drainage systems and below ground attenuation storage will not be acceptable, and that significant space will be needed for at ground level sustained drainage systems. So it's failed on that. So shouldn't the taxpayer have their money back?
That's an opinion of yours, I think. And actually, I could be a bit harsh here. You've asked about the cost, and now you've flown into the scheme itself. But the portfolio holder may.
Well, I said it's design flawed.
Yeah, you did say that. We didn't agree with you, but we'll see what the portfolio holder says.
So a couple of points in response to that, Mr. Goatley. Firstly, on the rain gardens from the aesthetic point of view, they have been designed to improve the overall look of the estate, to encourage investment into it. It's a shame that, vehicles have driven over areas of it, as I'm sure you well know, and we're looking at putting mitigations in place, and there's, again, money which will be externally funded provided to do that, but it is a shame. The planting will be done soon as well, and, so that will complete the project itself. From the sustainable drainage perspective, I'm not a drainage engineer. Again, I can come back to you with a more detailed response once I've spoken to officers, but Ardent, who have put together the designs, they are an award-winning multidisciplinary civil engineering consultancy, and they do have specialists in flood risk, water and drainage. So, from a layperson's perspective, I would very much assume that they've designed it correctly, but I'm happy to come back to you on the specifics if you wish. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Pearce, yeah. Councillor Foot.
Yeah, the tender brief covers 3 phases. The detailed design, including feasibility, planning permission and procurement, and supervision of a 3G pitch facility. The full ITT brief can be provided. Do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, can I just clarify, was that a figure you gave on that? It was £28,000, was it, for this work? Was I right?
Well, as I said to your earlier question, phase 1 has been commissioned, and that's for the design and feasibility study. And the cost for that was £26,000, £975.
Right, yes, thank you. I asked 2 questions trying to understand would you meet with me after this to so I can get more of an idea? I expected that to be a lot more money. I was expecting like £60,000 for the work needed.
Well, you're a ward resident, and so I'm quite happy to meet with you as a ward resident. I'm your councillor, so we'll meet outside this meeting and we can have a discussion about that. Yeah.
Super, thank you.
Okay, I'm back up for Ms Saunderson on question I. Again, I'll try and take the supplementary. I can confirm that we will be undertaking consultation in accordance with the Council's adopted Statement of Community Involvement, SCI, and the statutory requirements for consultation. The SCI states that we will make all relevant documentation available during formal consultation periods at the Council offices here in Market Street. We'll place all relevant documentation on the Council's website. We'll send all relevant consultation documentation to statutory and specific consultees. We'll make documentation available, either electronic or paper, for all public libraries across the district, and we'll notify all those registered in our electronic database as and when appropriate. We'll therefore meet our statutory requirements, but are unable to go beyond that at this formal late stage. This approach is in recognition of the resources the Council has available. Do you have a supplementary?
Yeah, I recognise it's a late stage, but at no stage were any local staffed exhibitions undertaken. And this is out of step with other LPAs that I monitor and who are going through local plan reviews now. So I would like you to, your statement of community involvement does not preclude these. I think it's 2.17. So I would like you please to consider, if there are any more consultations, trying to include these, because they get to the hard to reach and those that are not digitally enabled, which is 15% of the West Berkshire population. Thank you.
Grateful for that, and I will take that away. I do know, and I think Councillor Stewart would have been there, and I think Councillor Gaines went to a public meeting around the Pinson's Hill site. I think I'm right, Joe, and therefore
I was away, unfortunately. So
you were away, but anyway, you know it took place, yeah.
Okay.
And so, Mrs. Saunderson, where there are meetings, we will attend, but I will take it away and consider it.
Yeah, these have storyboards and things, you know, and they're really.
I understand. There's a limited period on this, and unfortunately, it does all the holiday season. But let's take it away. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next one up then is Jay, Mr. Brookie again, to Councillor Foote.
Thank you very much, Richard, for your question. To date, 6 purchase orders have been raised for amounts over £9,999, but less than £49,999. There are 2 purchase orders that have been raised for amounts over £49,999. Do you have a supplementary question?
Thank you for your answer. I do not have a supplementary question.
Thank you.
Mr. Goatley, next up. To Councillor Sturgis.
Thanks for your question, Mr. Goatley. So West Berkshire Council delivers economic regeneration projects through working with town and parish councils, residents, businesses and community groups to develop regeneration projects that best meet community needs. So the Newbury Master Plan And Hungerford and Thatcham town strategies are examples of place improvement projects which aim to bring more residents and visitors into our town centres, supporting the district's economy. The council has also been supporting small rural businesses across the district to diversify and grow through the Rural Business Capital Grant Scheme, helping to boost the rural economy. Do you have a supplementary?
Yeah, yes, please. Didn't quite answer the question. I think it's really, I was looking at the economic bit of it. Are we plus or minus? Is it costing us money? Is the economic regeneration? So I'm very aware that the funds are tight in West Berks Council. And so regeneration to me would be building up industry and profits from that way.
Well, I'd say with any local councils, regeneration would normally have a positive impact. There'd be new businesses coming in, so there'd be an increase in business rates and revenue that way. Anything that attracts more visitors into our town centres as well and into our district, boosts local tourism and local spending is going to have a positive impact as well. If we're helping businesses to grow and diversify, again, we're creating more employment as well, which I can specifically say is the case for some of the small rural businesses we've given grants to. It's enabling them to actually expand their workforce, which is fantastic. So yes, overall, I'd say it has a positive effect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Pearce. Mr. Pearce, any member of the public would be able to attend this at the invitation of the Newbury Community Football Group, as they are the body with the Newbury Football Club itself, who we are consulting with. So I really give you that as the route into those meetings, and would look forward to seeing you if they believe that adds something to the discussion. Thank you. Do you have a supplementary?
I do. I find that incredible, actually. I've got a lot of knowledge with planning and the whole situation with Faraday Road down there. So you won't invite me personally yourself then?
No, I've given you a route into that meeting, and if they wish you to come along, I will welcome you to the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
So that's public questions, and we're on to petitions. And I believe we have one to be put forward tonight by Councillor Barnett.
It's working, is it, Leader? Sorry, because I haven't been given one, so I've moved down here. Okay. I think I'm allowed to sit down.
You're going to introduce the petition, Councillor Barnett.
I'm going to introduce petition. Firstly, thank you, Leader, for giving me the chance to present this petition. It's a petition signed by 60 residents of the eastern end of the new Newbury Racecourse development. Would you like me to identify what the petition is?
Yes, please. Yes, that's been a custom and practice here that the person who puts in the petition tells us what it's about and how many people have signed it.
I know I'm allowed 3 minutes, but I can assure you it won't be taken 3 minutes. This petition, as I said, is signed by 60 residents of the eastern end of the new Newbury Racecourse development. They are all concerned that now many new houses are now being built and occupied along the Mile Strait. That is generating a considerable number of extra vehicles entering the eastern area of the racecourse. Many at speeds that could cause injury to pedestrians and, of course, also the adjoining roads. Therefore, to cut down the likelihood of accidents and reducing in pollution, the petitioners have asked specifically if they can request the whole of the area to become a 20-mile-an-hour zone with raised cushions at some time in the future. They haven't specifically said when, but they would like to have that considered in the future. And that's all I've got to say, Leader.
Thank you for that. That'll be accepted into our process, and Sadie's coming across to take it from you. you for that. So the members of the public are very welcome to stay as they well know. Mr. Brookie, is that your grandson? Yeah. I hope you enjoy the experience. We'll do our best to entertain you. It could get interesting later, I guess. But you know, it's lovely to have you here and interested in what we're doing. Okay, I think I'm on to item number 6, which is our reports. And the first one up is the financial year Q2 capital finance performance report. You'll introduce this, Councillor Cottingham. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I got to put my microphone on. Thank you, Chair. I will. Right, so the capital financing Q2 report. So the current forecast year-end spend is 60.1 million, which is a underspend of 4.8 million pounds. As of Q2, 21.4 million has been spent, with a further 38.7 million to be spent in the Q3, Q4. Of the 60.1 million, 31.2 million is council funded and just under 29 million is external funding. Long-term borrowing, as of the 31st of March 24, the start of the year, was 206.6 million. Highlights of key projects of monies to be spent this financial year. We have the Castle School of 1.4 million. We have additional special education needs and mental health improvements at primary schools of 2.4 million. Enhancements to educational buildings of 1.3 million. We have 5.4 million for the dry side provision at Northcroft. Also, from a green carbon reduction perspective, 3.9 million, which includes the solar farm. Regarding our infrastructure, highways and bridges, we have in excess of 12 million to be spent. And of personal interest to me, as I caught the train yesterday to London, which cost me a peak rate of nearly £84, which I found which is probably another issue for us to look at as collectively as a council, how much the train is now costing residents. 2.3 million at the Newbury train station and 2 million at Thiel. Yeah, it does feel a bit highway robbery, the amount of money which we're paying, residents have to pay to get the train. That's another issue. Planned ICT infrastructure, we have 1.1 million. We have 8.1 million reprofile for 25-26. Also improving the super fast broadband for schools, 2.9 million, which is externally funding. Our authorised limit to borrow debts is 383 million. We expect it to be roughly 225 million by year end.
Do you have a supplement? No. Thank you for that. Are there any other comments from the executive members at this stage? Then I'm moving to the Leader of the Opposition, Councillor McKinnon.
Thank you, Councillor Brooks and Councillor Cottingham. A couple of questions on this one. So the 8.1 million that's proposed to be reprofiled to 25-26, is it possible to give us a summary of why that money's not been able to be spent in year?
Yes.
Thank you. We can provide that summary. It's just not in the report. So we can look for some comment.
Oh yeah, it's
just planned expenditure that is going into next year due to the project delays.
I guess my question is, what's the reason for the delays? I don't need a big list of the projects, but just in summary, what would cause so many of these projects to be delayed? We vote in the capital programme at the budget. What's going on?
I think it was one of the things which we discussed previously is that we're struggling a little bit to get project managers. So we have a third party up the road, AWE, who are consuming a lot of resource. They're doing a lot of building work. So what we're finding is that we're into a bit of a bidding war to get those resources. Their pockets are slightly deeper than ours. So it's just something which we have to be mindful that we're getting best value for residents, that we're not, I suppose, paying top dollar. So it's really just making sure we have the adequate resources to be able to have the projects to deliver to budget to plan.
Thanks for that answer. Do we have internal project managers as well? Is that a question of limited internal resource too?
We have a group, but I think it's one of the things which we've been looking at as an administration to beef up that particular resource to almost harmonise and group together the project managers so they can be interchangeable rather than being in silos across the business of West Berkshire Council.
Fair enough.
It's something which we're looking to do to cross-skill.
Thank you. May I continue?
Yeah, I mean, there is a context here. If we got there to within 8 million, I think we'd have done better than quite a few years behind us. And I'm not trying to make a political point, but there's always been slippage in a capital programme, sometimes as much as 30%. So if we did deliver this, we're closer to delivering what we budgeted to do, Councillor McKenna. But please carry on.
Yeah, no. Your point is well made, and certainly when I was in your shoes, Councillor Cottingham, for 4 years, it was happy times. We would always underspend the capital programme by a little bit, and I remember it was not just external resources but internal resources as well, which would cause that. And I guess this will not be a surprise for me to bring up, but there's been a project running for a year, 18 months since you guys came in at Faraday Road. And I just wonder how much officer time and internal resource that has taken up, and how many of the projects, for example, we're slipping £4.6 million worth of investment in the Environment Service. It's not a question of getting your priorities wrong here a little bit.
Well, now you're moving into a debate when this is really question time, isn't it? So you talk about Faraday Road. And I could do a bit of tit for tat him backwards and forwards, because when we came in, there'd been a project running for 3 years to replace to do an upgrade to a care database system. So these things happen, as you well know, and you were sitting, wrestling with before we came in. But I'm trying not to get a tit for tat here, but is that where we're heading tonight?
It's Christmas, we're all in a good mood here, but I think I remember a couple of executives ago where you made a big thing about it not being question time from us and you allowed debate.
And so far I have, but I'm trying to bring us back a little bit,
I think it's a valid point, Leader, that I'm making. It's about the prioritisation of those resources. The administration's chosen to prioritise money and resources on the Faraday Road site to benefit one football team, whereas we have 4.6 million. Yes, it's a political point. That doesn't mean it's not valid, but if you don't want to answer it, I'll move on to something else.
Councillor.
What I would say is that that particular project which you have highlighted was a manifesto commitment which on the doorstep we believe won us the council. That's why we're sitting this side of the chamber.
Part of it. Lots of other good reasons.
Thank you, Leader and Councillor Cottingham. You mentioned the manifesto. I have your manifesto in front of me. The manifesto commitment you guys made was immediately returning.
Is this the full 3 minute or 5 minute?
No, it won't be long. Immediately returning the grass to bookable football space. Word for word. Have you met that commitment?
Hold on. There are questions later, and quite a few of them, to Councillor Foote. And I'm going to let him pick that question up.
Councillor Cottingham mentioned the manifesto.
All right. Okay.
I just happened to have
to in member questions later, there's several on Faraday Road. And I'm going to add that to Councillor Foote, because we're getting a little bit distracted from a capital programme, which you can see there is some slippage, and that is germane to me to try and avoid that slippage. And I think you've had answers to why that's happening and how we're trying to mitigate it.
I think I've had answers. I wouldn't say I'm delighted with them, but would you like me to move on to some technical scrutiny of the capital programme?
I'm going to give you a break for a moment, if you don't mind, because Councillor Abbs has been indicating.
I've much appreciated. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much, Leader. Couple of things. Councillor Cottingham, you mentioned 2.9 million for a delay in that for fast broadband for schools. That area moves very rapidly, and I'm hoping the executive is looking at what's happening in terms of the satellite availability. 2.9 million would pay for well, if just use Starlink as an example, you could install fast broadband in all schools for a fraction of that money. And if you're still struggling to find a few pennies, there's quite a few pounds there, I suspect, that you could find just by going a slightly different route. But I only bring that one up because you mentioned the number. The one question I did have was to do with the chart that says it's Q1 capital financing report in the detail, liability benchmark, and it shows a graph. I can't display it, but it shows a graph basically. It doesn't have a page number either. Page 11, I think. When I compare, yeah, that's the one. So when I compare that to Q1's report, the graph looks basically identical. I just cut it and pasted in Photoshop to see if they were identical, and they seem to be. But obviously the numbers are changing, so therefore the liability must be changing. Is that an error maybe, or?
No, if you look at the differential is between Q1 and Q2, it's down by roughly 4 million, which we are funding. So the actual benchmark is always going to be the 383 million, which is calculated.
So it's too small to note.
Yeah, so it's just the headroom which we have. But it's an interesting point and a valid point which you make, is that may be the headroom, but because of the general fund, we have to fund the capital principal repayment along with the interest. It's not a case of us borrowing up to that 383 because we just simply won't be able to afford the interest and the MRP associated with that. So at the end of the day, we look to have the principal and the interest roughly 8% of our budget. Revenue budget is what we're setting aside as being almost the fiscal rule which we're looking to apply from affordability perspective. So it's not a case of being a magic money tree of us being able to borrow up to 383 million. That will make us bankrupt if we were to do that.
No, I was hoping to see the curve slightly lower because of what was happening.
You had another point, did you?
I know that it was comparing those two charts. So that was it. Thank you.
I think I'm back to you, Councillor McKinnon, am I? Yeah.
Thank you very much, Leader. Okay, let's have a look at this capital report then, Councillor Cottingham. So at 2.2A, I think it's in the executive summary, isn't it? So I've mentioned the 8.1, I'm referring to 2.2 paragraph B, the proposed transfer of council funded expenditure budget totalling £0.47 million from next year into this year for support of the playing pitch action plan. Is that to do with the Faraday Road project?
It's the wider, it's a holistic project which we have regarding the playing pitch strategy. So there will be an element of that, but it's the wider whole amount.
Okay, thank you. Now, I've just been looking at the capital programme that was voted through at the budget in March, and I can only see £286,000 in 25-26 in that capital programme for the playing pitch action plan. But we're bringing forward 0.47, so 470,000. Where's the rest of the money coming from? Because there's only 200,000 in 25-26 to bring forward to this year.
What do you mean, where's the money coming from?
Oh, the proposed transfer of budget totaling £0.47 million from 25-26. Looking at 25-26's budget in the 10-year capital programme, there isn't £0.47 million in it. There's only 200,000.
Yeah, there'll be a reprofiling, reassessment of the level of investment required for the playing pitch strategy from a strategic perspective, which will then allow us, from an external and internal borrowing. So as you know yourself, with any capital budget, you have ups and downs. You don't fix your strategy set in stone with something which happened, which was first passed in February this year. It's a case you have the flexibility and agility to react. I think I think all businesses do that. You don't set yourself with a tablets of stone. You adjust your budget accordingly with the strategic priorities you have as a council.
So
you coming back?
It's a very nice answer. So put another way in, the budget for this has gone up.
Say again?
The budget for this has gone up, whereas in 25-26 there was 200,000 It's now been bumped up to 470,000. This has gone up.
Yeah, so there'll be swings and roundabouts where line items will go up, line items will go down. And as I say, overall, the actual budgeted spend is down by 4.8 million. So as I say, from an affordability perspective, it's in line. We haven't exceeded the overall budget, which was passed back in February. All we're doing is we're just, as I say, reassigning spend across different cost centre, different budget lines.
Yeah, is this
One for the road,
final
leader.
Yeah,
It is from me. 2.2D, 0.76 million of external funding relating to various things, including drainage and flood risk. I know I've got a question on this coming up later, but do you know how much of that 0.76 million is for drainage and flood risk and how much is for the other stuff? I don't know if you have that to hand.
Don't have those numbers to hand. We can give you a written. Oh, Stuart has those answers.
Yes, it's 338k for specific drainage and flood risk.
Thank you ever so much.
Thank you very much, members. We note this item. It's the quarter two position. So we have, thank you, Nikki. We propose the noted and we're approving some reprofiling here. So let's rehearse this. Councillor Cottingham, you're happy to propose this report and I will second. The forecast outturn position 60.1 million against the annual budget of 64.9 million, creating a forecast £4.8 million underspend. We are noting that, members. I don't think we have to vote on that, but we're noting it. We're asked to approve, so we will be voting on these. The proposed reprofiling of the £8.1 million detailed by service in Appendix A. The proposed transfer of council funded expenditure budget totaling 0.47 million from 25-26 into 24-25 support of the playing pitch strategy. 2.9 million of external funding related to superfast broadband project is allocated and the planned project expenditure is funded accordingly, and 0.76 million of external funding relating to street lighting improvements, essential maintenance budget, drainage and flood risk is allocated to cover in-year expenditure. Those are the four recommendations we're being asked to approve. You have a proposal I've seconded. Are there any other comments from the executive? All those in favour, please. Thank you very much. That is carried. And we move on to the revenue report year to date, which again is Councillor Cottingham to introduce page 31 on the report. Thank you, Councillor Cottingham.
Thank you, Chair. So again, highlights of our revenue performance to Q2. The Q2 forecast overspend was 11.1 million, which was a 1.8 million addition to Q1. Key has been endeavouring to have actions to reduce this overspend by 5 million. We have further mitigations and transformation of 4 million, thus reducing the overspend to 2.1 million, which as an overall percentage of the budget is roughly 1.3% of the overall revenue budget for this current financial year. This will bring the general fund balance down to expected level of 3.9 million. So I'm not proud to say this is the lowest level of general fund reserves in the country. It's a sad fact which we face. It's way below the minimum level of 7 million. So we continue to have a tight internal control environment via the Star Chamber and the weekly FRP to monitor and control expenditure. Of that previously mentioned 5 million, 0.2 million has been taken from earmark reserves, 3.8 million from transformation funding, and 1 million from service mitigations. We have service action plans to find that 4 million. However, again, just to reiterate the perilous state of our finances, if we can't deliver, there is a risk that West Berkshire Council will have to ask for central government for exceptional financial support. Within the report, we can see where those cost pressures are in Appendix A. So it's no surprise to everyone in this chamber that we have increase in adult social care, mainly to do with the fact that client numbers have gone up from expected level of 1,946 to 1,964. We've had higher mental health support requests. We have mitigations which are reducing that down by 800k to 1.4 million. Children, family services increase of 2 million, again mitigations down to 800k. Education and SEN, 3.1 million. Home to school transport overspend of 1.1 million and £1 million in residential disability demand as well. So we do face tough choices, tough pressures on our finances. I think at scrutiny, Mr. Holmes did give an indication of the proportion which we face of adult social care, children and family services, home to school transport, rising from 55-60% to nearly over 75 to 80%. So what we're seeing is, unfortunately, in the middle, being squeezed more and more, and we have a greater demand on our statutory obligations. And as I say, it's something which we're having to face on a day-to-day basis to make sure that we're protecting the most vulnerable people in West Berkshire from adult social care and children and family services. And as I say, it's at the moment we're doing it. Thank you.
I don't think it's a secret. Up and down the country, every council has faced this almost perfect storm of adult social care increased demand, which we know for years is a demographic trend. And yet at the same time, a great deal of pressure on children and family services, and particularly in the special education needs and disability block. So those two together have come together, and not just this council, but most councils up and down the country. Just to give it context, I guess normally you would manage probably one more easily than the other. You've got the two coming at you has really put pressure on all local authorities, all senior unitary county councils across the country. So that's what we're wrestling with. And I think we're managing pretty well. Councillor Abbs.
Yeah, thanks very much, Leader. My memory may not be perfect on this, but I'm pretty sure last time we were talking about the Q1 report, we looked at the home to school transport, and a number was mentioned. In my head, it was something like £54,000 per person in terms of the cost of getting them to and from school. I've just wondered what's given the problems got worse insofar we've got more to deal with. Have we tackled that yet?
I do remember you mentioning that. And I do remember you saying with driverless cars in the future, it'll get easier. And I reflected afterwards, and I thought you wouldn't send a child in a driverless car unattended, so you might still have the cost of the person in the car. But that's for the future anyway, driverless cars. Ask Elon Musk when they're coming in. But the unit cost, I don't know if Councillor Codling has anything to add to that, because this is,
It was a big number, and I think we both thought it was a big number.
Through the chair, please. Through you. Councillor Codling.
Thank you, Chair. It is a rising cost. We have the 54,000 you're talking about as an average. That's those children with SEN. That's not your average child getting a bus to school. Complexity of need, finding the right place for that child. They may have to travel a bit further. Yeah, unfortunately, the cost is just rising.
So there's nothing we can do about it. Is that what?
No, we're doing all sorts of things.
Yeah.
There's huge reviews going on in home to school transport in here. There's looking at routes and improving routes and trying to get children walking to school where they can. So lots of things going on in terms of how we can manage, but we're only managing to damp down the growth. we're not getting it to flat line at this stage. Lots of work going on all over the country about this, councillor.
I wasn't trying to trick anybody out. I'm just trying to get
No,
more
no,
information about what
no.
we're doing.
You know, we're wrestling with it, and as all councils are.
Yeah,
Councillor Cottingham.
yeah, just to reiterate, Councillor Abbs, is that we're thinking outside the box, trying to come up with creative ways of reducing the cost. But as Councillor Cottingham alluded to, is that we have a number of children who have complex needs, then need to have that 1-to-1 or 2-to-1 care when they're being escorted from home to their particular school on a daily basis, backwards and forwards. So it's not straightforward.
Well, if I may say so, it might be useful to bring. Oh, welcome.
Sorry, please don't just talk, Councillor Abbs. I'm trying to manage a meeting. So please indicate and I'll bring you back now. And then we've sort of got a little bit of control over the meeting. Is that all right? Thank you.
Of course,
Thank
it's
you.
all right. Is that okay to say something? Thank you. I was simply going to say it would be quite useful to bring out, especially if it's a specific segment, so that people understand the complexity and why the average number is so high. When in fact, for most people, it probably isn't. It's just a little bit more information so we can view it properly.
I think we'll note that. So thank you, Councillor Abbs, and we have Councillor McKinnon.
Thank you very much. Known for years, it's a trend, Councillor Brooks. That's your own words from just a second ago. And of course, that's the case. And I agree with everything you said there about the demand-led services. So adult social care, children's care is the main driver of this. I guess my question is, and Councillor Brooks, you remember our battles over the years at these updates where I'd present an overspend or an underspend, actually. And Councillor Brooks would say, oh, what's going on here? Your model's hopeless. What went wrong with the modelling? And I never looked at an 8% of the budget over or underspend at all. So I accept what you're saying about where the demand is coming from and where the pressures are. I guess my question is, you've missed this budget by 8%, which is a whopper, on a budget that was only set 9 months ago. So did we not anticipate the demand? What's gone wrong with the model? I'm getting the leader again, am I? Don't worry, Ian, you might come in at some point.
You are getting the leader again because this is a Q2 report. You're actually stating we've missed it by 8% as if it's the end of the year. So that's a context, I think. Councillor Cottingham.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor McKinnon. A certain amount of deja vu here. As I said back at Q1, is that the art of any budget is to make sure that you have sufficient contingency. Yes, we had our best estimate when we pulled together the units and the unit costs, which was passed in February. And unfortunately, some of the mitigations which we had in place have not been able to dampen down. There has been an increase in demand. As I mentioned there, we've had an increase in mental health provision. And again, it would be a case of us understanding what's been driving those increases so we can then model that into the current budget for 25-26 as well. So yeah, it is. We've been able to absorb certain elements of that increase in statutory services in looking at being creative in other areas within the budget. And as I said earlier, we're having to squeeze the middle more and more. And as I say, we have that statutory obligation to fulfil, as you're well aware. And unfortunately, there's other areas which we're having to cut back on within our budget.
I expect you want to come back.
Well, do you know, I'm not going to bang on about the 8%. I'm not sure it was fully addressed there, but that's okay. That's okay. I've got two more questions, Leader, if that's all right. How has the council got itself, this is on home to school transport, how has the council got itself into the position where it's awarded home to school transport to children in one street and not to children in the same street? That cannot be right, can it?
Well, I understand there's individual cases and they can be different. There is an appeals process, as you know. So I'm not sure you could just generally do a straight, they're in or they're out because of individual cases. But I don't know if, again, Councillor Codling, because it's specific to your area. I'm sorry, you know, that I'm passing it to the portfolio, but I
Absolutely
think
fine.
it's appropriate to do so.
Home to school transport depends on the distance from the school to the place of residence. You may live in the same road, but you may be just over the border of that distance.
That's not the case in Streetly though, is it? That's not the factor that's decided these cases.
I'm not really going to get pulled into particular cases. I would recommend that you ask, one of your members might want to ask a question about a specific case where we can be sensitive to what we actually say, which is appropriate. Because if you're dragged into individual cases, you've got a confidentiality problem.
Oh yeah, I'm not going to be naming names or putting addresses in there.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, Councillor Codling, I'll send you an inquiry on that offline if that's okay with you, and we can have a chat about it, because I have been approached by some of those parents, so it is a bit of casework.
We understand. We do understand. I'm just cautious in an open forum like this, Councillor McKinnon.
I was taught to be cautious, absolutely. One more. Can we really put transformation funding in to plug a hole in the revenue budget?
So, transformation funding allocation, there has to be a business case which delivers financial savings going forward. So it's not just a case of one-off, as you say, filling a hole in revenue. There has to be the strict accounting rules, which we have to be able to prove to our new auditors that there is a business case which is more than 1 year, that there is a continuous improvement which is delivering savings. So yeah, so we have a strict criteria. So I have two officers, one to my left, one to my right, who are over this, and now we're not trying to whack in as much as we possibly can into transformation to offset the fact that all will happen. It will be disallowed once the auditors come to do our books. The first time in how many years we have formal audit this year? 3 years. So yes, so which is a risk in itself.
Thanks, Councillor Cottingham.
You did say 2, and now you're on 2.5.
This is, and it is a half. It's not a 1. It's would I be able to see the rationale for that transformation funding being put towards the revenue budget?
No problem from my perspective. And I think it would be actually good for scrutiny and transparency and democracy that you get your agreement.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
The key that I would have thought you would want to scrutinise was the return on investment. Do we transform services and get that return on that money going in 1, 2, 3 years down the line? That's the key for us. You put it in transformation and you actually improve services and you get a saving to the public because you've invested that money. Okay, so members, Councillor Wallister.
Just a quick question. Has that transformation fund encompassed the seller part of the property portfolio?
It has, Councillor Wollaston, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, I'm not trying to rush, but we are being asked to note. We're being asked to note the Q2, Q2, halfway through the year, budget manager forecast of £11.1 million overspend against a net revenue budget of £164.6 million. We're being asked to note the action to reduce the overspend totaling £5 million and service action plans containing further mitigations, transformation of £4 million, which if achieved, and that is our intention, would reduce the forecast overspend to £2.1 million, the same as Q1, and result in a general fund balance of £3.9 million, which the portfolio holder reminds us is very low indeed. We note the key areas of pressure relating to demand-led services, driving the forecast overspend position detailed in section 5.5 of the report. No need to vote on this, but is it noted, members of the executive? Thank you very much indeed. Item 8 then, I know Councillor Cottingham will introduce it, but I draw your attention to the recommendation, which is really sort of replaced really by page 51. The executive resolves to One, delegate authority to the relevant service director. If you look at 7.21 on your papers, and 7.22, delegate authority to the service director and democratic officer in consultation with the relevant monitoring officer. So I do want you to look at those two as we go through this. Over to you, please, Councillor Collingham.
Thank you, Chair. I will be brief and to the point. This is obviously from a compliance perspective and governance regarding our rules and regulations as a council. Any contracts over 2.5 million would, require that authority to be passed by this committee, by this group. There is one particular contract which we're looking to from an adult homelessness accommodation perspective, which is likely to be in excess of the 2.5 million. So we asked this particular forum to allow delegated authority to the relevant service director for this.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? What we are being asked to do, and the vote take place in part 2. The decision will be on our website within 5 days. But I understand, Nicky will put me right, that in this part of the agenda, we will vote on page 51, 7.1, 7.2, 1 and 2.
Voting takes place in 2. Sorry. Voting takes place.
All voting, all voting. Thank you. So we note at this moment and we return to it in part 2. Thank you very much, members. Right. Number 9, we're off finance for a moment. Corporate Parenting Panel Annual Report. Councillor Codling to introduce the report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. This is West Berkshire's first Corporate Parenting Panel Annual Report. And like the other annual reports before you this evening, items 10 and 11, we want to ensure these are shared with you to raise awareness of our duties and responsibilities within children's services. The purpose of this particular report is to provide corporate parents with an overview of the panel's work and the council's commitment to children in care and care leavers. The panel meets quarterly. It is co-chaired by one of our care experienced young people and myself. This is where we have oversight and scrutiny of services which supports children in care and care leavers. As a council, we take our duties seriously and we want to ensure services to those who are in our care are to a high standard. This annual report outlines the work of the panel in ensuring corporate parenting duties are upheld and is presented here today to share this work more widely and to support awareness raising. The key line in this report for me is at item 4.1. Corporate parenting involves promoting the same outcomes any good parent would want for their own child. This annual report demonstrates how corporate parenting duties were met in the last year. This is slightly late as it's the first one that's been done. So next year's will be a bit quicker. And it outlines the panel's activities and governance related to the children and young people. It reflects the positive achievements and the services working with the children and shows dedication and commitment is making a difference. It also identifies our priority areas for 24-25, the current year. The recommendation is for this report to be noted, and this supports further awareness raising around corporate duties. And I thank those members who were able to attend the training last night. Thank you, Chair.
Any other comments from the executive members? I look across and Councillor Burke.
Yes, very good report, Councillor Codling. No criticism or suggestions for improvement. It's very good. Thank you.
Grateful for that. Thank you for that. I think we're looking good here. Help me out while we're noting. We're noting the report. Members, any other comments? Otherwise, we note a good report and well done to our service department and to Councillor Codling. Thank you. If you would move on to the next one then, please, which is the Care Leaver Annual Report.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, this is the Care Leaver Annual Report, and the purpose of this report is to present the work of the service more broadly, raising awareness about the support provided to care leavers and fulfilling our corporate parenting responsibilities as a council. This report is intended to give all corporate parents insight into the council's commitment to care leavers. It provides an update on the performance for leaving care service for 23-24. This again is our first care leavers annual report for West Berkshire and offers colleagues an overview of legislative and corporate parenting responsibilities, facilitating better oversight of our young people. As a council, West Berkshire is committed to supporting children in care and care leavers and values ongoing learning and development to continue providing high quality services. Again, the report identifies our priorities for the current year, and again, a recommendation that this report is noted, supporting further awareness for work with our care leavers.
Grateful to you. Any other comments at this stage from the executive members? I look across Councillor Bowick.
Thank you. Bit of a love in this. Very good report. What I liked particularly was the number of older care leavers who are still in touch. I think that's a very informative point.
Again, well done. Thank you to all those involved. And again, moving on to 11 then, Councillor Codling, the Early Response Hub annual report, please.
Thank you, Chair. This is the annual report of the West Berkshire's Early Response Hub, detailing activities for, again, 23-24. The purpose of this report is again to provide an overview of the Early Response Hub's wide and varied work in bringing earlier help and support to families. The Early Response Hub provides support and intervention to families and children in need of support at the time they need it, with the aim of preventing worries from escalating to avoid further statutory intervention. There is evidence from the Early Intervention Foundation that avoiding statutory intervention and intervening early has better outcomes for children and families alike. And of course, this has the added bonus of being a cost saving. This is a well-established and respected service that continually strives to increase the footprint of early help to support the right service at the right time. The report illustrates that during 23-24, there has been an increase in numbers of children who have accessed support and provides a hypothesis and data relating to increases, which the service continues to analyse for support, to support service delivery. You will see from the annual report there are several different elements of work within ERH. Each element has a focus on prevention and intervention. It also highlights the number of partners we work with. Responsibility is shared with 18 agencies, which include police, health, housing association, plus a good number of charities. If you look at the logo on the front page, it lists everybody on there. Again, recommendation is that this report is noted and that the oversight for delivery for the future strategic direction of early help. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. And again, executive members to add anything, or we come across to Councillor Bowick.
Very good report. And I think it's worth mentioning that this is the one area where members should, if they want to scrutinise, if they want to get underneath the bonnet, it's the front door that we need to look at and keep our eye on at all times.
Okay, people are very pleased with what these last three reports, it would seem, and I'm grateful and congratulate the service in that regard. Thank you. So noted. Back to you then, Councillor Cottingham, on item 12, please. The disposal of units 1 and 2, Cleveland Gate Retail Park, Gisborough. A part 2 item as well, of course. In this one, I think we're just noting it, and the voting will take place in part 2.
Thank you, Chair. So, as we're well aware, we have a strategy of disposal of our commercial property portfolio. Currently, we have 8 properties within that portfolio, and we seek the permission to dispose of one of them being Gisborough property. So at the moment that's gone out, we're looking to to the market at the moment, and it's really getting the case of having the permission once we have an offer to dispose, which I believe will be in part 2.
Yes, indeed. Nothing to add to that. I look for Councillor McKinnon.
Yeah, thanks, Leader. Thanks, Councillor Cottingham. I think Councillor Williston's question just a little bit earlier on hit the nail on the head with this. So when this property and when other commercial properties are being disposed of, those proceeds are allowed to be used to top up the transformation budget.
Yes.
We've just seen in the previous item, or one of the previous items, that the transformation budget is being tapped to the tune of nearly 4 million quid to top up the revenue budget or to plug the overspend. So you know how this is going to look. We're selling off the commercial property, one off, selling off the family silver. It's going directly to the revenue budget with a brief stop off in transformation. Now that all might be legitimate, but it's a hell of a bad look. And I would urge you, when I was an auditor, you know, I worked for a big four firm, begins with a D, ends in Eloy. And when I was in practice, thanks Claire, when I was in practice, we used to look at audit risks and look for the inherent risks, Councillor Cottingham. And there is a clear incentive here for the council to categorise transformation funding as being able to be put to the revenue budget when it is not. I'm not saying you're doing that, but there's a clear risk that that's the case. So I'm just putting this in the record right now. Make sure you account for it properly.
I take your point. Be interested to know what other people might do in our situation. You invest to get that return, to get better productivity going forward. That's transformation. And if it's not going to transform services, we shouldn't necessarily be spending it in that way. Councillor Cottingham.
Thank you, Councillor McKinnon. Yes, I fully adhere to the fact that the risk of, I wouldn't necessarily put financial misstatement, but yes, adhering to the rules, which is really key. But something which Councillor Brooks alluded to is part of the business case of the return of investment. At the moment, there is no sinking fund on their commercial property portfolio. So in real terms, this is going to cost us money if we have to set aside monies from the rental income to maintain these assets. So there is a business case if the return on investment from the transformation is greater than the interest which we're receiving from the property portfolio. So you may get a business case of reducing cost, which is say 10% compared to the 5 or 6% which we receive in commercial yield from our property portfolio. So there may, as I say, be a good business case, makes sense to utilise that cash which we're receiving to accelerate our transformation where we are reducing our revenue expenditure by investing in transformation. And that can be items of IT, new ways of working, etc. So it's very much changing the way in which we're working as a council to be more effective, more efficient, giving people on the road access to mobile devices, for example, to be able to write up reports, the use of artificial intelligence, for example, which improves the effectiveness and efficiency of the business of West Berkshire Council.
Okay, so we have to also make a decision. Hang on, I'm nearly there. We also have to make a decision that says of any capital receipt, not just the property portfolio, what percentage of that do we put into transformation with that return on investment, and what do we put towards our reserves? So I don't want the public to think that every penny that comes in goes into this transformation fund on its way to the revenue budget, because that's not what we're doing. It is a proportion of capital receipts, which we adjust and consider very carefully. Back to you.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you, Councillor Cottingham. Last word on this, well, from me. Everything you said there made sense. It was great, actually. And if you're going to sell off commercial property that's yielding X% and you can use that to save more money than that in the revenue budget going forward, that's brilliant. And I'll be the first one to defend you, right? I'll have my IFRS book ready to whack people around the head with it if they're going to attack you for that. But let's make sure that the accounting is spot on and the business case is spot on, because, I mean, we have given the auditors that we've had, you know, a bit of a hard time sometimes You guys have as well, and rightly so. I'd hate for them to come back at us and say, hey, you've got that wrong. That's
Okay.
it.
I think that's a statement, but we got it. Councillor Abbs.
Yes, thank you. 4.3 of the report says of our commercial properties in the pub, the council successfully disposed. We may not be able to go through that in this particular part, but I'd be very interested to examine that word successfully when we go into part 2, because obviously we would have had an original amount which would have been estimated we thought we were going to sell it for. Then we've got the amount that we actually sold it for in the end. Now, we could say successful. Well, we actually sold it, so there's success. But was it the kind of success we'd hoping for? Now, this will be the third set, I believe, of property that we're trying to dispose of. Therefore, we've got 2 points on a graph. We can say, are we getting and are we taking that into account? In other words, are we likely to get the type of return that will actually do what you were describing just a moment ago if we carry on down this path of selling more and more assets? I don't think we can go through it here, but maybe you can.
But each property, and in part 2, because the commercial confidence comes before you, executive, as it will be this evening. It will show the investment, the return. It will also, as Councillor Cottingham said, the lack of a sinking fund has created a great risk to this council and its property portfolio. And that's what we're mitigating, we believe, in our strategy here. Councillor Cottingham.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Abbs. So later on in the year, there will be the Property Investment Board report. So that type of detail will be included in the report, as you say, which demonstrates the original purchase price, the monies which we received, less interest payable, MRP, and the actual selling price of the asset. So yes, the selling price is always going to be whatever someone's willing to pay.
Of course. I just hope, if I may,
microphone, please.
It's on. Yeah, I didn't switch it off. So,
oh, well, you're
optimistic. Okay. Try to be. I was just hoping that we might be able to give some positive news to the public about how this particular process was going. So that's, hence I mentioned it at this part.
Okay. So that is coming back in part 2. We note it in part 1, members, and we move on knowing that we're going to come back to it in part 2. Councillor Cottingham, you're up again on item 13, aren't you? The risk management strategy. Yeah. Thank you.
So this is my favourite part of the evening. Those of you who know me, I see Councillor McKinnon is grimacing at this. Yes. As a financial risk manager, as I say, my corporate life was spent in many a risk management meeting. And I'll open up to say we have to look at risk as being our friend rather than our foe. Risk is there to be embraced, to be managed. And what we've done here is we've just upgraded the strategy to reflect changes in best practice. So moving away from a 4x4 matrix to a 5x5 matrix. So those of you who, to quote David Gates, like a picture paints 1,000 words, there is an extra colour in here, which moves from green, yellow, amber and red. Also, we'll be looking to have bottom-up clusters within West Berkshire Council by service director, so we then have a holistic corporate risk map. Something which Mr. Holmes recommended within the report is this concept of risk appetite, which is, as I say, increases the awareness of risk within the organisation, from financial, health and safety, reputational. That is a moving target each year, depending on where we are as a council, which will then cascade across the entire organisation. So people within the organisation, but also the residents of West Berkshire can see what the risk appetite of West Berkshire Council is. The paper also has been updated to reflect the change in the 3 lines of defence model to the 3 lines model. it was felt that defence was too much safety first. And I know football's going to be discussed a lot this evening and also has been discussed previously. The analogy which I would use, it's a bit like, the defender kicking the ball into row Z from a defence perspective, not embracing the risk rather than playing out from the back. I know you may occasionally, you'll get caught in between the goalkeeper and the central defender. You might concede a goal, but it's well worth it. Looks better. You create more opportunities to score goals by having a understanding risk rather than, as I say, just belting it out across the field. So, as I say, this particular paper does enhance our risk management strategy. There's a lot more to be done, as I say, within the organisation, service level directors. So for me, the proof will be in the pudding of creating these operational risk maps, which allows us to identify risk and then mitigate risk and also accept risk. So as I say, risk is not a four-letter word. It is our friend, not our foe.
Okay. It's worth remembering that certainly 2 peer reviews running said the council was too risk averse. Now, for the avoidance of doubt, let's be clear, we're not going to take every risk that's out there. We're just changing the emphasis of that. If you're not a football fan, it is about the analogy doesn't resonate with somebody who doesn't like football, but your other obscure reference was to Davy Gates. And for those who don't know, Davy Gates in the 70s and 80s was part of a group called Bread. But that doesn't help people either. So we're disappearing down our own rabbit hole here in terms of obscure references. And I'm digressing. So any other comments from the executive members? It is Christmas. I'm allowed to digress. Councillor McKinnon.
I've never heard of David Gates. And I hate playing out from the back as well. It just gives me the fear. It's awful. Yeah, look, risk. I really enjoyed that, Councillor Cottingham. Thank you. Risk sounds like such a bad word, doesn't it? It sounds so negative. Well, if risk didn't have an upside, no one would ever take any risks, would they? You could be hit by the bus crossing the road, but well, okay, but you could cross the road successfully and go into the newsagent and buy a winning lottery ticket. Disappointed to see the COSO risk management framework from 1992 isn't in there, Councillor Cottingham. I know you're a SEMA qualified accountant, so we could talk about this all night, I think. For those of you who don't sort of enjoy this sort of document, just take my word for it. This is fine. Fact.
Thank you, Russ.
Happy with it. Job done.
Very good.
Thank you, Councillor McKinnon. Thank you.
Thank you for that. As I say, there were some nodding about the bread, but some of us didn't want to go there.
I still have vinyl of David Gates and
Quite
bread.
right too. Quite right too. We're losing the plot now, aren't we? Councillor Wollaston.
Thank you, Leader. I finally found the performance portal. It did take me a long time, and I think you're going away from transparency to hiding things almost. And I have to say my preference was the previous system we had, which was very clear. You could see precisely what the performance factors were. So I would very much ask you to go back and try not to hide things. Yours might look prettier.
I think you're saying okay.
Yes, okay. I think
Fine.
it might be the next item, but
okay. I think we're nearly there.
Yeah.
So final word on David Gates. Wonderful songwriter, good singer, terrible at grammar. He wrote a song called "Baby, I'm a Want You." Nobody else knows it in here, but terrible at grammar.
I remember that, baby.
You know? Okay. And that really is, we're in a Christmas mood now, aren't we? Nearly.
Sing it.
And in terms of football analogies, my team is playing your team tonight, by the way. So that'll be interesting. Tottenham against Rangers. You never know what Tottenham side are going to turn up. That's the trouble. Okay, item 14 is me. And this is the performance report quarter. We have to, hang on, no, I'm rushing my fences. We have to, you propose the risk strategy, Councillor Cottingham.
I propose the
I
risk
will
strategy.
second it. Any other comments, members of the executive? All those in favour? Thank you very much indeed. And we're on to the performance report quarter 2. You've got the executive summary of what we've actually achieved. We're here to note the progress made, delivering the council strategy delivery plan, to review those areas where performance is below target, reporting as red or amber. I will say pretty straight up, and talking directly to the leader in our position here, I'm really looking to improve the way we report this. We have a new head of performance in terms of Beatrice Texera. I'm not sure I pronounced that right, but Beatrice is helping me look at the way we present this. You're pointing at something I should be aware of.
No, I was just making sure.
Okay. So the performance report, I'm trying to make more easy to get in terms of dashboards, indicators. I don't think we're there yet, Councillor McKinnon. What I'm looking to do also is in the reds and ambers particularly, I'm looking to have the reason we're there, what we're doing to get out of it, and when we think we'll get it back to green, amber, and then green. So it's a work in progress. Beatrice joined us recently, taking some time to get to where we want to get to. I'm saying now that by the next one, the Q3, it will be improved again. So that's sort of introduction because, yeah, I want to see it more easy to understand. I could go through quite a lot of what we've done as a sort of rah-rah. You know, we have improved the staffing and the recruitment process. Number of council functions were digitised. The employee value proposition and career site was launched. I can go through all of those things on page 208, step by step by step by step, and into page 209 and into page 210. I draw attention to them. I'm not going to go through each of them this evening. It would take quite a long time. Let's see where we get to in terms of comments and questions, rather than, as I say, me doing a sort of haven't we done well type introduction. I will draw you back to it. If people are starting to tell us we haven't done very well, I might draw you back to pages 208 and 209 and say, look at all the things we've done. But Councillor Abbs, do you want to kick off? Because there's no other comments from the executive at the moment. That's fine. The portfolio holders will take questions on this directly rather than me. Councillor Abbs.
Yeah, thank you very much, Leader. 1416 Appendix A, detailed performance RAG. To what you've just said, really, clearly it's an output from a system because the screen grabs are just plotted in. And it's just a couple of things to note, really. There's 5 different symbols used there, a red triangle, green stars and so on. There's no explanation of what they are within the appendix. So it'd be quite useful to have that. The count is accurate as far as I can tell in terms of the detail further below. But I got a bit lost in terms of the performance year to date and the 1 times 1 of those and 1 times 1, because they don't add up. Sometimes they add up, but sometimes they don't. So it could be helpful to have some alignment there. But that's really all I wanted to say in the spirit of trying to improve things.
Yes, you'll note the wheel has gone. I was very glad to see the back of it, basically. This is trying to replace the wheel and probably needs a little bit of tuning. Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Joe Stewart.
Thank you. There's just one item that I've noted that I'm interested in, and it doesn't necessarily need to be answered tonight, but it's on page 216, and it is DR KPI 042, launch a mentoring program for children with local businesses. And it says that it's been ceased, and I'm just quite interested to know the reasons behind it, really, just because I'm very passionate about young people and their careers, and actually working with local businesses, I think can be really beneficial both to the young person and to the businesses themselves as well. But as I say, it doesn't need to be answered tonight.
No, I'm going to take it head on. It was in our manifesto and we intend to achieve it. But at the moment, I'd say ceased, it's paused. We are looking at the prioritisation of some of these things. I really want to get back there. I've got Councillor Sturgis want to come in on this.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So it was put into the manifesto, but then further discussions revealed that there is something very similar in place already. So it's a case of looking at what the real differentiation between those two schemes would have been. But there is something in place which does that. But if you'd like more specifics, Councillor Stewart, I'm happy to take that offline with you.
Well, I'm grateful for that, but I think it should have been in the report. And that's why I want to add stuff in that gives more explanation to, because, you know, that's something I should have known. So, you know, I'm passionate about that as well. I'll do the mentoring program. I mean, you know, I'm keen in terms of business and you know, but if there's something we're patching into already, but we need more information on that. Happy?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Somner.
Thank you, Leader. Just observations more than anything else, really. And one that I'm sure I mentioned at Q1 report, 5.7, the level of litter and graffiti across the district, just as good, excellent. Also to note, thank you to all those groups that go out on horrible weekend mornings and other times, I've no doubt, that help us do that as a district, because it's not, in all honesty, about what the council achieves on that. And I do think, again, that we need to be mindful of noting that and potentially even commenting on those groups, because they do add a lot to what we do, including in your very good Thatcham. I'm sure I've got friends that are part of that group. Other observations really are, and I guess this may be part of what you're trying to achieve, as you've just alluded to. There are a couple of areas where there's nothing. DR KPI 89, the trial of the extended pedestrianisation hours of Newbury Town Centre, has got nothing in it at all for its quarterly report, although there is something in the graph which seems slightly strange to me. There are drawings on page 241. There's a couple of graphs there where there are big gaps, bearing in mind that we are only a couple of weeks away now from doing Q3 data gathering, I would imagine. We've got graphs where there are sort of, it's either nothing, which would be unusual judging by the size of the response either side of it, or there are just gaps in the data. There's no explanation as to why that might be, and I think it would be helpful to indicate if that is the case. And a further one on the following page 242, same issue, Leader. Thank you.
No, thank you for pointing that out, and we'll take that away. Councillor Gawley, you might want to give a feedback on the pedestrianisation.
Yeah, I think it's a difficult one because it's a one-off activity. So I think it is quite hard to display that in a performance report. As you know, we've recently done the consultation and we're working through those results, ready to reapply to the DFT.
And I accept that, Leader. The issue obviously is that it's got a March 2004 date on it. So maybe revising that date would be an option.
I think the other point about the people who do go out and pick up litter, keep their place tidy, is this the right report for it, or do we find somewhere else to applaud that work? I don't know, but I do applaud it, that's for sure. Councillor Burt.
Thank you, Chairman. One of the priority areas which is red is tackling the climate and ecological emergency. I dropped a note to Councillor Gurley earlier on in the week. I've come to learn that there is a marked difference in the availability provision of EV charging points in Newbury compared with Thatcham. I mean, it's stark. Councillor Gurley kindly responded to me and explained what was going on. He didn't respond on the other point I made in my note to him about seeing a Community Connect bus that had been parked in a public charging point during the day when I would have thought it would have been bobbing around the district, dropping people off and picking them up. Maybe you can come back to me on that, Councillor Gowley. But in your explanation as to what was going on in terms of the provision of charging points, you used the word review or reviewing 3 times. You spoke about surveys 3 times, and you said you were looking at accelerating the programme. What that note said to me is there is no target. Maybe I'm wrong.
Shall we put it to
you are indeed wrong. Yes, there is a target. We're going to go back to interrupting again. I see. That's fine. Okay, there is a target. It is in the pack. Let me just find it quickly. And in all honesty, we are a little bit behind that, but we are catching up. I am trying to do this and read. I can't multitask, sorry. But there is a metric in here for off-street and on-street EV charging. Like I said, we are slightly behind. We had some delays with the procurement. We've also got outside factors like the DNO, the distributed network operator, so SSE, where that holds up connections for certain EV points. So that has impacted places like Hungerford, for example. But we've also launched a load of other new ones in that time. So we've got the Kent Centre, we've got Shaw House coming online soon, we've got Station Road coming, Newbury Station coming online very soon in terms of off-street EV charging points. And yeah, absolutely, we've got plans for Thatcham, and I've kind of described those in my response to you around the leisure centre and the car parks in Thatcham where we have control. So absolutely, we are looking to scale that up. We've recently applied for some more funding from the central government and been successful. Unfortunately, that new funding comes with a different set of rules to the existing funding. So we've had to re-procure it, which complicates it further, unfortunately, and adds further delay into it. But we are pushing what we can for our existing contract, and we will continue to procure the new provider to deliver with the new grant funding we've got. With reference to the Thatcham Connect, I think it's a fantastic opportunity to celebrate the success of that service and how we are introducing our EV fleet around the district to do the Community Connect work. Completely appreciate it's an unfortunate place to have stopped at that point and is taking up a public charger, but that's within our gift to resolve. And like I said, we've got plans to increase the number of EV charging points around West Berkshire as a whole.
You have a supplement? No. Back to you.
Yes. It really doesn't feel as though there's a plan there. You said an awful lot there. You look at the difference in the availability in Newbury compared with Thatcham. You mentioned Kennett Centre and so on. When they come in one day, it really won't make that much difference in terms of the easy access. And to the point about the Community Connect, I don't mean to take anything away from what you say is a great service. I'd really like to know why that bus wasn't charged up in the morning or overnight, why an employee is being paid to sit in the bus while it charges up in the morning. So, but I know it's a specific
I think you've made the point.
Yeah.
And I think we'll take it away because I really wouldn't want a meeting like this, which is looking at, the big picture, if you like, to get too down into the little picture. And so I'm not going to ask Councillor Gore to come back on that now. And I'm going to move on to Councillor McKinnon, I think, unless you had another one. Sorry.
Page 224, which I need to get to. Oh, yeah. I'm having trouble with my.
Do you want to come back later?
Yeah.
Councillor McKinnon.
Thank you very much, Leader. I'm going to get serious a little bit now. I know it's been quite a good natured meeting. There's one of I've got a question about this later, but this is not the same question. One of the KPIs in the portal, you do have to click through a few things to get there, but I recognise what you said at the start about tidying this up, is agree plans for sports at Faraday Road through working with the local sporting community. You will know, of course, that I'm quite exercised about the amount of money that's being spent on this, and my members' questions reflect that. Again, that's not what I wanted to talk about here.
Just got a plug in for it then.
Yeah, sort of, it's a
okay,
trailer,
right.
you know,
I get
don't
it,
change
okay.
the channel.
So, yeah.
I wanted to know how you identified the groups you wanted to work with here. I think we know that NCFG are
I
one.
really want to take that later. It really ought to come out, and in your supplementary, you can make sure it does, because this is, you know, you're going into detail there.
No, and
it's going to come out later. I mean, there's 4 or 5 questions on it later.
there are, Leader.
And I'm saying, Councillor Foote, pick that one up in the answers to the question, please. Let's get back to the performance.
I have to disagree with that one. With supplementary questions, I'm not allowed to bring in any new information. That's part of the rules, isn't it?
I'll make sure that is picked up later, sir.
So
let's, you know, who's clerking the meeting? Sadie, make sure, Nicola, Nikki, make sure that is picked up later in the meeting, please.
If I hadn't asked,
can I be?
Those no, come on now, Leader. This is a legitimate question about an item on this in this report. It really is.
Ask it again, and then we'll log it and ask it again.
So this KPI, agree plans for sports at Faraday Road through working with the local sporting community.
Yes.
How did you identify which groups, which people comprise the local sporting community that you wanted to work with?
Got that one, Councillor Foote? Lovely. You'll hear that answer later.
Well, why not now?
Because I don't want to take it now and I'm chairing the meeting. So what do you want to move on to next?
I want to ask you your criteria for saying that that question can't be answered now.
I'm not going to have it answered now, because there are 5 questions on this later that probably take up most of the question time. So I'm asking you to move on, and I think I've got the right to do that.
Well, you're in charge of the meeting, Councillor Brooks, so you can do pretty much anything you like. But if you're going to give yourself pats on the back for allowing questions and allowing debates and things, you're now going, the needle's going the other way here.
So this is the battleground you want to pick tonight, is it? Because frankly, there's a lot more I would thought you would like to talk about on this performance report, sir.
Let's rewind a second. I want to share with the meeting tonight something that I find quite uncomfortable to talk about. Which is the abuse that I've suffered and my colleagues have suffered from the Newbury Community Football Group. And I have got a legitimate question here about how you decide which groups you decide to work with, which groups you decide to invite into the heart of council decision-making on a steering group, and have a good old say about how taxpayers' money is spent. I do not find this easy to talk about. I was hoping to share with it now, but if you're saying I have to wait, then I will do so.
And I'm grateful to you to do that. So let's stay on this item, and I hear your strength of feeling, and we're not going to duck that. But have you got any other point?
No.
Okay. Okay, so members, we have the performance report. We have an adaptation of the way the data is being presented, the information being presented. I think we will continue to improve this. And Councillor McKinnon, I'm looking for you to help me with that, if you like, because in that first time it came through months ago, you made points about you didn't think it was as good as it could be. And I agreed with you. And this is how we evolve to something that I think is clear, not just for this room, but clear for people at home to look at our dashboard and know what we're doing and know that we are being open, transparent with the things that are going wrong as well as the things that are going right. So final word from you.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to help you with that, Leader. I think there's a happy medium behind the way that the report was done in the 4 years to 2023, which was not perfect, I'm sure, and this very high level thing. So let's meet up and have a chat about it. That'd be lovely.
Very good. Thank you. So members, on this, we're noting the progress made in delivering the council strategy delivery plan. Are we comfortable? Did you want to come back, Councillor Gawley?
It was just to correct something that I misspoke on earlier on. We're actually ahead of our targets on both off-street and on-street EV provision at this point in the year. But I'm absolutely happy to address Councillor Boat's questions from earlier on. So thank you.
Did you find it within?
It did. It is in there. Yeah, I was probably looking in the red bit. That was why. I should have looked more in the green bit.
More in the
but
green.
Being a human,
Yeah.
I went straight to the
Yeah.
stuff we do.
Yeah.
Not so
Yeah.
great.
But members, on page 245, this is the infographics there. This is how we should be presenting data. It looks a bit cartoonish, but it does stand out. And as Councillor Cottingham said, and I forget who wrote this, it was a picture tells 1,000 words. So moving on. Thank you very much for that. We're at the end of the reports in part 1, and we're coming into member questions, aren't we now? So I think I'm right in saying we move into member questions. Nobody's stopping me. I think Councillor, is it Codling going to put the first question on behalf of Councillor Vickers? I'm happy to do it. I think we can take it in the room. Was it Councillor Sturgis? Somebody was going to put Councillor Vickers. Is it you? Councillor Barnett, you've fooled me now. I thought you weren't going to stay through to this part of the meeting. And I know you plan to put this question. Thank you, Councillor Barnett.
Okay, I present the question in Councillor Vickers' name.
Councillor Sturgis.
Thank you, Councillor Barnett. Thank you, Chair. So the implementation of the Peace Garden project is the first stage of improvements to Newbury Wharf. The construction costs for the improvements to the Peace Garden are 422,000. This money is coming from the UK Shared Prosperity Fund and the Thames Valley Berkshire Local Enterprise Partnership, so it is external funding. However, it's obviously still extremely important that value for money is delivered. I do believe this project is value for money. The Peace Garden, I'm sure you're familiar with it, Councillor Barnett, was not an inviting place to be and was not being used to its best potential, particularly as it is a prime waterside location in the town centre. The improvements to the garden will enlarge it and turn it into a really welcoming green space with paths and play areas where everyone will be able to walk and relax. There will also be dedicated accessible parking for cars as well as parking for motorbikes and bicycles. The taxi rank will also stay where it is, as will the public toilets. The overall vision for Newbury Wharf is to transform it into a highly appealing town centre destination for both our residents and our visitors. The changes will improve the public green space for residents, boost tourism, along with local spending, and encourage walking, and which will in turn support health and wellbeing for residents and visitors. I mean, Newbury Wharf is a key part of the town centre. It is also a historic site, and we should absolutely be maximising this. And I'd like to also add, Chair and Councillor Barnett, that I visited the site today, and it's fantastic. Even though works are in progress, it's really taking shape well. I talked to a couple of the contractors on the site, and one of them told me that they'd had a lot of positive feedback already from passers-by. So that's good news. Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Barnett, do you have a supplementary?
Thank you very much for that comprehensive answer by the executive member. No, you're pleased to know I haven't got a supplementary.
Thank you.
Okay, question B from Councillor McKinnon. There are times when you really know you're probably moving towards a bear trap, and you think, what's the supplementary going to be? So, of course, Councillor McKinnon, we should answer questions clearly, directly, and irrespective of how politically uncomfortable that it might make us. And I feel uncomfortable most of the time, actually, because it's a tough role. And you're there to be shot at for sometimes very good reasons. So, yes, we certainly should. And I think we really try to do so. I wait for your supplementary because I suspect you're going to give an example. But overall, I think I've tried to be, as a leader, very open with the public, very open in these meetings. That's a preamble to try and sort of anticipate the googly, the off-spinner. We're getting to the cricket analogies now. But anyway, let's have it.
Thank you very much, Leader. I'm not going to give you a specific example, actually, so I might surprise you. I don't have a supplementary. I'm happy with your answer. I just hope that we all live up to it. Let's go.
We will continue to try to do so. Thank you. Number C, please. This is to Councillor Cottingham.
Thank you, Councillor Bowick, for your question. So the provision of £18,000 per annum, i.e. £1,500 per month, has been made for the maintenance of the Faraday Road pitch and for the maintenance of associated buildings. This sum includes pre-season preparation, really key, in-season repairs including verti-draining and top dressing, weekly cutting and pitch marking. This also includes the cleaning of the changing rooms and clubhouse. Do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, I do. Of course, you haven't really answered my question. You've told me about the pitch plus a lot of other things as well. It's going to cost £1,500 a month. Could you tell me what would be the if you've considered it, what would be the cost to maintain a modern 3G pitch?
Well, hold on. I mean, we will answer that, but we don't have a modern 3G pitch there at the moment. So,
but if the administration has chosen to forego a 3G pitch elsewhere in favour of the.
No, not necessarily. Please don't be of that opinion. But Councillor Foot.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair, through you to answer Councillor Bowick's point. As we mentioned earlier, there is a procurement and feasibility study going out at the moment about sorry, I beg your pardon, I said procurement. It's a design and feasibility study going out for a 3G pitch at Faraday Road. We haven't had the results of that yet, and obviously that will inform our decisions going forward.
Yeah, so
I hope that helps.
We haven't foregone anything as we sit here now, sir.
No, you did.
Sorry, sir?
You did. You could have had a 3G pitch in Punks Lane.
Well, we've got a playing pitch strategy being worked up. And there will, I can give.
So my question was a valid question.
I think we've asked it, we've answered it, we've answered it. There will be 3G pitches across this district in the fullness of time, because there is a big deficit, as we both know. Okay, next one up is D, and that's to Councillor Foot. And Councillor Foot, bear in mind the question earlier. Councillor McGuinness said it 2 or 3 times, so I promised it would get answered now, and he's been very patient. It's taken 10 minutes to get to it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, Councillor McKinnon, for your question. Newbury Community Football Group represent Newbury FC, senior men's and women's team, AFC Newbury, boys and girls teams, CSA 07 Football Club, which are form the 2 key youth football teams in Newbury, representing approximately 600 children or thereabouts. Procision, which is a local football academy, working in conjunction with Newbury College. And that forms part of the Newbury Community Football Group umbrella. And NCFG have been involved in the Faraday Road Steering Group in support of measures to enable league football to return to Faraday Road. It was always the intention that Newbury Football Club would return to play league football matches at this site. The steering group also discussed how spare pitch capacity is allocated, for example, for matches on Sunday mornings and afternoons, as any additional allocation may have an impact on the capacity of Newbury FC to fulfil league fixtures. And by that, I mean, quite simply, the state of the pitch. It has to be at a certain level to allow Football League matches to be played. The final say on allocations for the pitch is a matter for the council to determine, and this has always been the practice. So this would have been the case when your administration ran the council as well. Do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, I do. And thanks, Leader, for asking Councillor Foot to address my previous point, although I don't think he did, because the question I asked was about how you chose which groups to work with. which I don't think's been answered, but we can maybe have a go at that later. There's a few, as you said, but I think that was a yes. So they're on a steering group. And this is what I was going to mention earlier on, and I thank the leader for allowing me to make that point now. The Newbury Community Football Group, there's some choice language I want to refer to, leader. I don't know how you want me to deal with it, if you want me to censor it or if you want me to quote. Probably best censor.
I think best censored. We're in part one.
Yeah.
There are young people listening and
I understand.
Hanging on our every word.
I understand, but I think those who are having a laugh at now might stop in just a second. I've been called in public by members of the Newbury Community Football Group an F-wit, so F****wit. I and my colleagues have been called SH1T houses by the Newbury Community Football Group in public. I personally have been called a fraud who takes backhanders, and collectively the previous executive were typical lying Tory bees. That's from the group itself. On their social media sites, they have allowed comments to be posted which say that we were arsonists, we burnt the clubhouse down for the insurance money, we were the C words. Now, we didn't get the benefit of the censoring that I've just done from that. And some of you might be sitting there thinking, God, it's rich that Ross McKinnon's saying this. I mean, he dishes it out, doesn't he? But it is hurtful. And my question really, and it's a very serious one, is that, is it really good judgment to have invited a group like that and people like that to work with the council into the offices, to have a say in how council assets are used? That's my supplementary. Thank you, Leader.
Okay, and Councillor Foote will answer that. I will say from this chair, I'd not heard that before about that abuse. And it clearly didn't happen yesterday. It's been happening for a while. And I wish you had told me that. You and I connect quite often. You come back in a moment if you wish to. So I feel we should have had I won't say a heads up, but you should just have made us aware of that. But, and you have tonight, thank you for doing that. Let me be quite clear. This administration, executive, me, will never condone that sort of abuse. Never condone that sort of abuse. It is totally out of order. It's totally inappropriate. It's beyond inappropriate. I'm saying that very, very clear for the record tonight. Now, Councillor Foote will answer the supplementary. If you want to...
Very, very quickly, I appreciate that answer. And I have spoken about it publicly at previous executives during the administration. I have brought it up. And my question earlier was going to be about due diligence, about who you work with. So it was going to be addressed that, but I appreciate the answer you've just given.
Thank you very much. Well, can I also add to the leader's comments? I'm completely unaware that has been going on, and like all of us, we wholeheartedly condemn that sort of behaviour. I have to say to you that during the meetings, the steering group meetings I've sat in on, and the leader has sat in on as well, I've never come across a hint of that sort of behaviour from the people we've had in the room. I can only comment that far. But if I may, you said just now, your supplementary, how we chose Newbury Community Football Group, and you said I didn't answer the question. But if I can read back the question to you, it says, does Newbury Community Football Group have, or at any time had, a say in who can use the pitch at Faraday Road? It doesn't say, why did we choose Newbury Community Football Group? So I just make that point. But going back to, the bookings, it is exactly the same process that has gone on for a long period of time with West Berkshire Council allocating pitch time to organised clubs to allow them to fulfil their fixtures. And then if there's time left over, those spaces can then be looked at for being booked out by other organisations. But I come back to the point I made earlier that the Football League standard for the pitch has to be at a certain level, and so the pitch, if it's a grass pitch, has to be protected, if you like, so that it's not overplayed. I hope that answers that supplementary question. Thank you.
I appreciate we're getting supplementaries to supplementaries. It's because of the referral from previously. I think the question I was referring to you didn't answer was how you chose those people, not just the Newbury Community Football Group necessarily, but we can, that's what I was
had a
saying.
question saying, are we going to answer questions clearly and directly and concisely, however uncomfortable it might be politically? You remember that? So now I'm going to say to you that for several years, the Community Football Group has existed to pull together the various football groups and associations locally in order to represent them. And that is why when you look outside and say, we wish to consult on this, we wish to partner, we wish to engage, we wish to discuss, we look for a voice that can give us a tremendous amount of information and representation through one body. And now I understand Mr. Pearce is probably still smarting over there that I won't allow him to come as an individual to that meeting. But if there will be many individuals who say, I can represent the voice of football in Newbury, but this group had the loudest voice whether we liked it or not. So that is as direct an answer as I can give you as to how we engage with an organisation that represented so many football groups, Councillor McKinnon. Was your supplementary plus a supplementary plus a bit more supplementary? Moving on then. Councillor Bowick.
Yes, so it's me again. So thank you for your question, Councillor Berwick. Since November 2023 until the start of this current season, approximately 28 bookings have been made at Faraday Road. The council's booking software went live at this site in March, prior to the current football season, and since then there have been 41 bookings, mostly youth games. In total, approximately 69 bookings for mostly youth football have been made at Faraday Road. And this equates to about 103.5 hours of football played at the site. And this is pretty much the maximum number of hours that the site can currently sustain for the reasons I mentioned earlier. Do you have a supplementary question?
How many of those were booked by members of the public, Councillor?
Well, as we've just said, the booking process is the same booking process that West Berkshire Council has always had. In other words, they organise the schedules of pitch allocations based on the organised teams that they have on their sheets. And then if there are spaces left over, those can be booked out to usually organised teams. It's not the case that a group of, 22 people can rock up and say, I want to book a session at Faraday Road, because that's not the way West Berkshire Council has operated in the past. And Councillor Wollaston was obviously a portfolio holder before me, and he would, I'm sure, support that it's the same booking system.
Okay, so we'll move on then. Are we on F? Are we still on E? Moving to F. That's Councillor McKinnon to Councillor Foot.
Hello again, and thank you, Councillor McKinnon. By the way, I was a little bit disappointed that you failed to put down West Ham's move from Upton Park to the Olympic Stadium. Yeah. Anyway, we'll move on. Yes. Basically, as we all know that in 2018, Newbury Football Club were evicted from Faraday Road. Ultimately, the stands were dismantled and removed, the clubhouse burnt down, And your administration spent £191,000 or thereabouts clearing the site. So we had a situation where we ultimately had a dog walking meadow, if you like, on the area of the square where the football ground used to be. During the 2023 local election, we campaigned as a group to return football to Faraday Road, and obviously we won that election. And the residents, as we canvassed them, there was a huge amount of support for returning the football to Faraday Road. So we've actually had to invest in the region to date about £230,000 to get the ground back to a level where we can have Newbury Football Club performing in the league. In other words, it's past its Step 7 pitch inspection. Do you have another supplementary question?
I do, thank you. You mentioned the manifesto there, so I think I'm on good ground to bring up what it actually says. Your manifesto says immediately returning the grass to bookable football space. That's what it says, and agreeing outline plans with NCFG for a new pitch with enhanced stadium facilities. Now, I don't think you have returned it to bookable football space because the public can't book it. They can at Hennick, but they can't here. But hundreds of thousands of pounds for one football group to control. I'm going to say, does it represent a good use of council taxpayers' money? I don't think we had a yes or no or an answer to that.
Well, the simple answer is for me to say, yes, I think it does. And I think you often criticise us for not answering the question. And if I may, with all due respect, refer you back to what we've already said, which is that the Newbury Community Football Group represents, and I'll read the list again for you, Newbury Football Club men's and women's senior team, AFC Newbury boys and girls team, CSA 07 Football Club, the two youth teams, Procision, and also recently Cold Ash Vets have applied to West Berkshire Council, also as a group, to be able to book those grounds. And as I've already said, the priority is for the organised teams, the teams such as Newbury Football Club, to book first on that pitch, which passed its inspection for Step 7, and the pitch has to be maintained to a certain standard to allow those matches to progress. So there is a limit to the amount of matches that can be played on it. And as I've already explained, the West Berkshire booking process is that with the spaces available after that, other organised groups can book pitch time. And there is a charity match, I believe, coming up in a week's time, which exactly fits that criteria. So it's incorrect to say that people cannot book that pitch. They just go through West Berkshire Council in the usual way, and if there's space, it could be booked.
Can I move on? Yeah. G then, please, Councillor Barrett.
I'm sorry, it's me again. So basically, Burfield Football Club, Mortimer Football Club, AFC Aldermaston and Hungerford Town Football Club have not been evicted from their ground, whereas Newbury Football Club have. Incidentally, as an aside, the club, Newbury Football Club, lost a fair number of their best players because they no longer had a ground in Newbury. Consequently, the team deteriorated and they got relegated. So that's why they are currently playing at a lower level than those other clubs. And it seems to me mad that we've got Hungerford FC, Thatcham FC that are playing really good level amateur football and not Newbury FC. And I'm really proud that they have their home back and that we can progress and get them moving up the league, because that's a great bonus for the whole town. Do you have a supplementary?
Yes, thank you. I don't think there's any way you can say that it isn't preferential treatment to spend so much money on a ground for Newbury Football Club. And I wonder whether you will consider in due course to give similar support to Burfield, Mortimer, Aldermaston and Hungerford, perhaps I could say that, could you level the playing field?
Well, thank you. If I may, I'll answer that in two parts. First of all, you spent, as I say, I think from memory, and forgive me, I might be incorrect, but I think it was about £191,000, in effect, removing the ability for football to be played at Faraday Road. That was gone. So we've had to invest to get it back to that level. We said we would do that, and that's what we've delivered in 19 months, by the way, which I am very proud of our achievement on that. And the other point you make is the playing pitch strategy refresh is ongoing right now. And so you've mentioned Burfield Football Club, Aldermaston, these other clubs. That all forms part of that playing pitch strategy refresh. And obviously that will be, being announced and the findings of that in due course.
Sorry, was that yes or no?
We'll press on, I think, because we're only on G and we've got quite a few to go. And you'll back up again on H, Councillor McKinnon.
So really, I've answered this already, Councillor McKinnon, to Councillor Berwick's question, but it is this, that we're currently undertaking a review of the playing pitch strategy, and it will provide an evidence base for future prioritisation and investment in facilities within the district. So do you have a supplementary question?
Well, I do, and I'll remind you of what Councillor Brooks said in response to my earlier question. Clear and direct answers would be nice. That question is, will you commit financial and operational resources to assist Burfield with their mission? Their mission appears to be very similar to what Newbury FC have been trying to do. And you said that you answered it earlier on. You said that, well, they hadn't been evicted from their ground. Well, I put it to you that they never had a ground to be evicted from. They didn't have the pleasure of a nice council-owned ground. And evicted is a bit rough. They didn't own the ground. It was the council's pitch that they booked, they rented. Now, all of these other football clubs, they find their own facilities. Who's coming? They find their own facilities. They rent pitches from schools. They do what's required. They don't have the largesse of the council taxpayer. So again, will you commit financial and operational resources to assist Burfield or Mortimer or indeed Aldermaston, given that you've got 400 grand going down and you've got Newbury FC's club crest on the Porticabins?
Speech now. We've had the question. And by the way, Councillor Thorpe will answer in due course. Your distaste for Newbury Football Club over several years is coming out again tonight, frankly. Your distaste for this council righting a wrong and getting what should be our largest and premier team locally back where it makes some economic benefit to the town as well. Your distaste for us doing that is very clear. But as Councillor Cottingham said earlier, a lot of people voted for us, probably in the Newbury town area, and they voted for us. And I think part of their motivation might have been our intention to get Newbury Football Club back to Newbury, and we've done it. So your distaste, you're just rehearsing what you've done to Newbury Football Club over years and years, I think. You're just repeating it. Councillor Foote.
Yeah, I would just say again that the playing pitch strategy is being refreshed, and so all these issues that you've raised will be looked at, and we will get that evidence base, and we will come back and present that in due course. Thank you.
So, question Councillor Berwick to Councillor Gawley. Councillor Foote gets a little breather.
I thought we'd skipped one then. I thought there was another one. My apologies. Yes, thanks, Councillor Berwick, for the question. As an administration, we've had to take a very pragmatic approach to car parking charges, given the testing financial situation that we inherited and that we continue to wrangle with and tackle. We've honoured our commitment to consider a package of lower cost parking in consultation. And as you're aware, we consulted on a range of car parking charges a year ago, which have been brought in during this year. We have consulted and we have listened, and we did make changes to the original proposal. And while some locations have seen a very modest increase in average ticket sale price, around 20 pence, some specific and targeted sites have seen fees introduced that are lower than those previously in place. Do you have a supplementary question?
Yeah, what's the average charge? That was the question.
Oh, thank you very much. And, parking is a very varied scheme of parking charges. So it is really hard to give an average price without giving the full context of the localized scenarios. I've got a couple here if you want me to list them off to you in terms of localized scenarios. A good example is the Northcroft Leisure Centre. Previously, if you wanted to stay over 3 hours, the daytime price was £5, and now this is down to £1 and £2 tickets. So, depending on the state, so it's very different. So I've given you an average where we've seen an average increase of 20 pence, and I can give you a raft of specific examples to show you the differences in localised approach. Thank you for your question.
Okay, so we're on to question J, and that's me, I think. So what, and I'm going to take this because it's actually to Denise Gaines, so I'm going to pick this up. I could go for written answer, I'm not going to do that. So it's clear that the failure to follow the instructions is likely to lead to further intervention from central government. And the production of the local plan review would then be taken over, further eroding any influence on the plan locally and leading to some significant additional costs. Central government would charge the council the cost of this intervention. And I think looking at very early look at the MPPF today almost sort of reiterates and emphasises and underpins the likelihood of this happening. The council would then be required to start the plan making process again, adhering to the new MPPF, likely significantly increased housing need. Looks like 495 per year could become 1,057 under the proposed new methodology. So that's over double. Plus the additional cost of a new plan. So yes, this could lead to unacceptable speculative development and costly appeals. So that's where we are. Looking back at the question, that gives you as best an answer as I've got in front of me and can say from my own understanding. Do you have a supplementary?
Not a supplementary. I'll thank you for a very clear and direct answer. The polar opposites of the previous question.
We're on to K then. That's Councillor Bowick to Councillor Foote.
Thank you very much for your question, Councillor Bowick. The council is currently consulting with the public to understand their view as to whether the Downland Sports Centre should be removed from the leisure operating contract. The consultation closes on the 23rd of December, and the responses will be reviewed to inform any decision. Do you have a supplementary question?
Well, I'll go back to my question. Why would you even consider saving, closing the centre just to save £30,000 a year and at a cost of 5 jobs, particularly when you're pumping money into other sports facilities around the district?
Well, thank you for that supplementary. No one said anything about closing a leisure centre. What we're doing is going out to consultation at the moment. Consultation hasn't closed yet. That's going to close on the 23rd of December. And as I've just said, we're going to look very closely at those responses. And out of interest, I had a very helpful discussion with the head teacher at the Downs School yesterday afternoon, actually, and I was shown round the leisure centre by the business manager at the school. And we had a constructive conversation. So it's not correct to say that that leisure centre is going to be closed down. We're waiting to see the results of the consultation, and we're going to be looking at that going forward. Thank you.
Okay, we're on to L. Yeah. Okay. Any individual member who has the strength of feeling that a development, perhaps in their ward, highly likely in their ward, is damaging, and that's their belief. They are entitled to take action such as that suggested in the question. They're entitled to do that. They might well then fetter their discretion in terms of sitting on a planning committee. In fact, I feel sure they probably would. But there's nothing to stop them doing it. So that's the answer. You've got a supplementary?
I do have a supplementary. I've got two actually. I can't decide which one to ask.
And I'll ask both, knowing you, but there you go.
I'm not sure it's possible. Thanks for your previous answer, actually, because it was clear and direct, and it's what I thought you would say, so it helped my understanding of it. I guess a supplementary to this, what you've just said, given that residents in Bucklebury are being asked to put their hands in their pocket for this here, to fund a KC's opinion for a judicial review on the plan, and given the consequences you've just told me and us about if the local plan were to be set aside, would the executive attempt to inform the residents of Bucklebury about those consequences? Because I don't think they're being told the full story.
Well, I think they are, and I'll tell you why. At the last council meeting, there were statements made when we gave an update on the local plan. Those were clear statements that those residents could well have heard and perhaps should have heard from myself and the portfolio holder at the time. Very, very clear. So I think we made sure that's happened, made sure they're aware of that. And yet, quite rightly, they wish to continue to protest. Now, bear in mind that the inspector may come back and say that the plan is unsound. So, you know, we've got to see how this plays out. I think I've answered your question, and I think I've answered your supplementary by saying we've said that not just tonight in the previous question, but in the last council meeting. I'm going to move on. Councillor Cottingham, please. M.
Thank you, Councillor McKinnon, for your question. The consultation website identifies empirical evidence which supports the proposal. All responses to the consultation will inform the final decision. Officers from West Berkshire Council have met with Thames Valley Police as part of the consultation and will ensure that any response received from them will be highlighted before any final decision is made. If a decision is then taken to continue with this proposal, West Berkshire Council will work with Thames Valley Police to ensure that, wherever possible, the views of Thames Valley Police are accommodated. Do you have a supplementary question?
I do. You've changed your tune since scrutiny, Councillor Cottingham. My question earlier on about clear and direct answers to questions did not apply to you. I've always had a clear and direct answer from you, Councillor Cottingham. And you know, it's much appreciated. But at scrutiny, you did recognise that the information presented was unbalanced. And my question is, are you happy with the reasoning you've just given me? Because Thames Valley Police's comments or opposition to this proposal, it is based on empirical evidence. It is based on academic evidence, which they do cite. And I guess I'm just, yeah, I mean, why would you not include that empirical evidence? And you do include empirical evidence on the other side.
So at the time, it was getting my understanding where that opinion was coming from. Was it coming from the Police Crimes Commissioner, or was it coming from Thames Valley Police itself? So yeah, from my perspective, there is no reason why not to include empirical evidence on the impact effect of turning streetlights off. And if Thames Valley Police are able to provide that,
okay,
no problem.
So I realise now that the bear pit is going to be there for quite some time, because every time you feel that we haven't answered a question clearly and directly, you'll wave my answer at us. So yeah, okay, I get it now. I get the strategy, and we'll look forward to continue to answer questions clearly and directly. And we're moving on. This is me, is it? Okay. Now, this is one actually he brought up in the budget last year. And I said to you at the time, we'll keep this under review. And that's what I'm going to tell you now. We're keeping it under review. The budget is being built, and we will consider whether we look at 9 executive members versus 10. Watch this space. Do you have a supplement?
I don't think I do. I'm intrigued.
Well, I'm glad you're intrigued.
Pleasantly intrigued.
The next one is O to Councillor Gorney.
Thank you for the question, Councillor McKinnon. The answer is yes. Do you have a supplementary?
Yeah, how much?
Well, thank you very much for your question. So of the 760k that was brought forward in the current financial year, I can confirm that 338k of that was specific to drainage and flood risk. Just under £40,000 has been spent already at Burfield Bridge, and that has led to drainage improvements on the Reading Road, several visits to cleanse the drainage system on Pingewood Road North, and an extensive condition survey at Pingewood Road North. Extensive condition survey of the Pingewood Road North drainage system. As a result of this survey, we've identified a couple of improvements that will cost hundreds of thousands, and they'll be considered for inclusion in the coming year's capital programme and against other priorities identified in the Section 19 report. Thank you for your question.
Thank you, Councillor Gurley and Leader. You spoke very quickly there. I know we all want to get out and enjoy the Christmas period. Can you just repeat how much of it's been spent already and how much of it is earmarked for future spending? I think you said it, I just missed it.
Sorry, yeah, I was trying to give the direct answer this time round that you've so desired to see.
Oh, direct and audible, be nice.
So, yeah, just to recap, 338k is specific to drainage and flood risk. Of that, 40k has already been spent, and we have done an initial kind of costing of the works required on the drainage system, and that is into the hundreds of thousands of pounds, and that is will be considered for inclusion in the coming capital years programme and prioritised against the rest of the Section 19 report from January's flooding.
Beautiful diction. Thank you very much.
It was certainly audible. First time up, but of course it was pacey. It was pacey. It was pacey. Okay, next one up is P to Councillor Cottingham.
Thank you, Councillor McKinnon, for your question. In the current financial year, there will be £1 million of funds left in the transformation budget. Do you have a supplementary question?
I do. What's that going to do? It's been hollowed out, isn't it?
Not a very clear question there, I think. Might be direct, but I don't think it's very clear.
It's transparent.
Can I relay you to part 2 later? So it's not a case of the fact that we have plans to top it up, hopefully, through the disposal of an asset which we've talked about earlier this evening.
Moving on. I'm moving on.
It's been answered.
I'm moving. Thank you. Q to Councillor Cottingham.
Right. So thank you very much, Councillor McKinnon, for your question. Under the use of flexible capital receipts, funds can be allocated for the financing of capital expenditure and to fund transformational expenditure. Do you have a supplementary question?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Last one, Councillor Foote from Councillor McKinnon.
Thank you very much, Councillor McKinnon, for your question. The council worked with the Newbury Community Football Group to agree plans for Faraday Road. Newbury Community Football Group represents Newbury FC, and I've gone through a list which I could repeat, but I think we're all aware of that now. And it was agreed with members that once football commenced at the site in 2023, Newbury FC would return to play their competitive matches at Faraday Road at the earliest opportunity. Do you have a supplementary question?
I do. So it appears that NCFG was the only group that you worked with. Is it the case that a prominent Liberal Democrat local politician is a member of the Newbury Community Football Group? And isn't it therefore the case that there's lots of money in the pot for your muckers, but you're taking the residents for suckers?
It's a nice sound, but actually it just almost, it goes towards a line of saying that we are corrupt. It does move towards that. It's not there yet, but there's an inference which I resent. I can give you absolute assurance that does not influence our decision making whatsoever. And I'm moving on because I think you're close to a line. Councillor Foot.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I've said on numerous occasions this evening that Newbury Community Football Group is, if you like, an umbrella organisation of several organised football groups within the Newbury community. So it's not right to refer to it as one organisation, it's multiple, and Newbury Football Club is just one member of that.
Thank you. Right, we're done with members' questions, and that's a bit of a sour note to end on, actually. Very sour. But we are going to now move to item 16, the exclusion of press and public members. Would you agree voting to move into part 2, please? Thank you very much indeed. And we move back to item 17. Back to you, Councillor Cottingham, which is the contract. I beg your pardon.
Hold on until the YouTube stops.